What's up, friends? Welcome back to my channel. I hope you are all doing well. Today we are going to be doing a full review of the new Suqqu Liquid Foundation. This is not a first impressions review. I've been testing this foundation out for about 2.5 weeks, so I feel like I have a really good idea about how it wears. I'm going to be doing a full demo for you guys, giving you all the details, a full day wear test, and I'm also going to be comparing this foundation against the OG Suqqu the Cream Foundation, as well as a couple of other of my favorite foundations in my collection. So if you guys are interested in seeing that, keep watching. And if you are new here, welcome. My name is Sophia. This is my channel where we talk about all things beauty and makeup. I release content every single week on all of the newest luxury beauty releases. So if you want to see a little bit more beauty in your timeline, maybe a little more luxury in your timeline, then please hit that subscribe button. Let's get into this, guys. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really helps out my channel. Also, I'm going to link everything that's on my face, every product that I mentioned in today's video in the description box down below. And one more thing, guys, I will have timestamps in the description box. I like to be very, very thorough, in particular with my foundation reviews, so this might be a little bit of a longer video, but don't you worry, it will be worth it. It's going to be very in-depth and very helpful to all of you. But if you want to skip ahead, please feel free to use the timestamps. All right, let's talk about this new foundation. If you guys are not familiar with Suqqu, they are a fantastic brand. They are a luxury Japanese beauty brand that focuses on very much kind of like enhancing somebody's natural beauty. You can typically purchase these products through UK retailers. If you live in the United States like myself, they are also readily available in Japan. I bought this foundation from Selfridges. That's kind of my go-to, but I will link down below where you can get this foundation. Unfortunately, with Suqqu in the US, we don't have any counters. You can't buy this in store. You have to order it from a UK retailer. So that is one very small downside. Sometimes you have to pay for shipping, but I will say Suqqu, they're so good. I am willing to pay that shipping, guys. And I had the privilege actually of meeting with somebody from the Suqqu team that works at Selfridges and had a beauty consultation with them to really learn a lot more about this foundation. So I'm bringing you guys all the good details about this particular product so I can really teach you guys, like they taught me, what this is designed for, who this is designed for, and all of the good details. So let's get into that. Now, this new foundation is called the Liquid Foundation, and it has 23 shades, just like the Cream Foundation, and it costs $81. So it is just a couple dollars more than the Cream Foundation, and the reason for that is just some of the new technology that has gone into this particular product. Now, where the Suqqu Cream Foundation comes in with a very moisturizing, very kind of nourishing, natural feel, the Liquid Foundation is coming in as sort of its counterpart, okay? This is more moisturizing. This one was designed to be a very seamless and powderless finish, and it was described to me as a healthy and smooth texture with medium coverage. And the way they were able to create this is with something called fluid pigment technology. Let me read a little bit about this. It says on the Suqqu website, Suqqu have adopted the new technology of fluid pigment that is liquefying the conventional powder pigment. The powder pigment spreads by points, while the fluid pigment spreads evenly over the surface, resulting in smoothly and tightly adhering to the skin. So when you read about this particular product, it seems like it's supposed to be very luminous, it's supposed to be very long wearing, very self-setting, but it's not supposed to be matte. It's supposed to have a very sort of natural satin, smoothed look across the skin. And I will say that this texture, it is very runny. You guys are gonna see in the demo what this looks like on the skin. It's a very lightweight texture, but there's a lot of pigment within that very lightweight texture, which is very, very interesting and reminds me of a couple of other foundations in my collection. Now, in terms of ingredients, this also has hyaluronic acid and hyaluronized collagen. It also has hydrolyzed silk protein to create a smooth finish, citrus peel extract, which brightens the skin, and lastly, it has 13 Japanese botanical ingredients. I will include a link in my description box to the landing page and the description of this product on the Suqqu site if you want to take a better look at those ingredients in case you are interested. So like I mentioned, this is the kind of the complement to the Cream Foundation, which gives you a very like dewy and like creamy finish. For the most part, you are getting the same amount of product, and for the most part, the shades are the same, okay? The shades are supposed to be the same, but while I was discussing this with the Suqqu team and also testing it, which I will show you a little bit later, you will see that that this new range, it does lean a little bit warmer, maybe a little bit darker than the Cream Foundation range. I am gonna get into that in the comparison section, guys, and show you all some close-ups, but I wanna call that out right from the start. And if you guys are looking for help with your shade selection, have no fear. I will include the email address of the Suqqu team in the description box down below. You can email that anytime and the Suqqu team will help you with your shade selection. You can give them a couple of reference points of other foundations that are good matches for you, and then just ask them to send you a photo of the shades after they have dried down so you can get kind of an idea of what would work for your skin. But I will say that this new liquid foundation line, it does run a little bit warmer and maybe just a tad darker. For me, I have a neutral undertone, so it doesn't really matter that much. At the end of the day, it tends to look somewhat the same, but I know for a lot of you that really matters, is that undertone, if it being warmer, more cool, more neutral. So I do want to mention that. This foundation also does have SPF in it. It doesn't say the SPF on the bottle, but it should say it on the website. And the reason for that is because each shade actually has various levels of SPF. And what they've tried to do is they've tried to add SPF to every single shade, except as you guys probably know, it's really hard to keep SPF consistent while also maintaining a good texture and a good shade. Sometimes we take products and we extend the shade range and we find that once we add the SPF, it almost kind of ruins the color. It can make darker colors look a little bit more ashy and vice versa. So what Suqqu have done is that they've tried to add as much SPF to this to the point where it doesn't impact the formula and it doesn't impact the color. So I thought that that was really interesting and really thoughtful. So that's why you might not see the SPF on your particular bottle, but when you are shopping online, you will notice that this does have SPF in it. All right, guys, so those are all of the basic details about this foundation. Now what I want to do is get into a demo and a wear test to demonstrate to you guys what it's like to apply this foundation, what is the coverage like, what is the texture like, and then we're going to get into a wear test so you can see how does this wear throughout the day. Finally, I will show you guys some comparisons to other foundations that are in my collection. Before we get started, I do just want to mention my skin type. I am 31 years old. I do have some hyperpigmentation on my cheeks. That is usually one of my biggest concerns when it comes to foundations. Another one is dryness. I have pretty dry skin and I live in kind of a colder climate. Right now we're kind of going into spring, but I typically have a lot of dryness, under eye circles, and some fine lines forming. So those are my biggest concerns. But I think, guys, even if you don't have dry skin, I'm gonna really kind of go in depth so you can figure out if this is good for you. So even if you don't have dry skin, don't worry, the review's still going to be helpful. So let's get into the demo. Okay, party people, it's time for our demo. Let's try on this new foundation from Suqqu real quick. This is the box that it comes in. I will put the ingredients up here in case you guys want to zoom in on that. If you guys have any ingredients questions, definitely just let me know in the comments down below. And then let me show you guys this absolutely stunning packaging that this comes in. I think this is so beautiful. It's very weighty, it's glass. Obviously it's not the most travel friendly, but it just is a very, very sleek and sophisticated packaging. We take this off and we see that we have a pump bottle right here. And I wanna take a second real quick to just show you guys what my skin looks like before we put the foundation on. I did just get off my Peloton and take a shower and put on my skincare. So I'm looking a lot more flushed than usual and my skin is very moisturized. For reference, I'm 31 years old. I have a dry skin type. I have some fine lines and wrinkles, under eye circles, as you see here. And I do have a bunch of just kind of like post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation from having acne throughout the years. So this is what my skin looks like. I'm breaking out a little bit on my nose here. This happens every time the weather changes, guys. Hopefully that means spring is close. So this is my skin. And if you are new here, I film everything in natural light. So I'm just facing a window. We have a nice sunny day today. Thank you, daylight savings. Thank you, spring. I'm living for this. So let's get started. So let me show you how I like to apply this particular foundation. You'll notice here, as I mentioned, it is a pump bottle. I'm using the color 110. This is the same color that I use in their cream foundation. It's honestly a very good match for me. And I'm just showing you guys here how runny this is. This kind of reminds me of maybe like the McGrath Foundation, for example. But I honestly, it only takes about a pump a little bit more than a pump, maybe a pump and a half to cover my entire face. So this is an expensive foundation, but you'll see here that it actually has very, very good coverage for how lightweight it is. Now, the kind of brush that I like to use is one that is very dense. I'm using the IT Cosmetics Love as a Foundation brush. I'll link this or some similar ones down below. They come out with a new version every single year, but I like something that is very dense because this is so runny. You don't want your brush or your sponge to eat up the product. You can definitely apply this with your fingers, with sponge, however you like. It all works, but this is how I like to apply it, just because I kind of like to stamp it onto my face and have it just kind of lay on there without getting streaky. As we know, that can happen with thinner formulas. So let me show you right here. We're just gonna stamp it on like this, and I can cover such a good amount of my face with just that one stamp. Like there's still product in the brush, look. So that one stamp covered my entire half of my face. Okay, so this is what we have, and this is without the foundation. I put a very thin layer, I spread it everywhere, and a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just go back in on the tops of my cheeks where I have more hyperpigmentation after I do my entire face. It's very, very thin and spreadable formula. So that was the entire one pump on my hand. It covered my entire face, but I do feel like I want to go in just a little bit more on the cheeks and maybe more on the nose because I am breaking out. So that's why I say that I like to use just a tiny bit more than one pump. So don't be thinking this isn't going to last you a long time because it's a thinner formula. You do get very good coverage. Okay, friends, so this is what the foundation looks like upon first application. We've got one pump plus a little bit just to cover some imperfections. And as you can see, it has a very kind of natural luminous effect. And the fifth ingredient in this foundation is alcohol. So what you're going to see is that this is going to be rather self-setting. At least in my experience, it's going to still have this kind of radiant texture, but it's not going to be quite so dewy looking as it is right now. And I find that it's very easy to layer other cream products and other powder products on top of it as well. It's not going to stay sort of like tacky and move at all. So I just want to show you everything is very well covered. I feel like this is a perfect amount of coverage for me. Like I don't feel like I need more than this. I feel like it does just enough with a very thin layer. So once again, this is what it looks like in natural light. Okay, friends, I'm gonna do the rest of my makeup and then I'm just gonna check in with you guys throughout the day while we still have daylight, and then again at the very end of the day so you guys can see how this foundation wears, so stay tuned. Hey guys, I just finished doing the rest of my makeup, so this particular foundation has had time to really like set down. And on my face, I tried to use products that are kind of tried and true and more of like a matte texture. So I have the Josie Maran Vibrancy Concealer on, one of my favorite concealers, so I know it's not gonna kind of affect my opinion of this foundation. I also have the Gucci bronzer on my cheeks, and I have one of the new Suqqu powder melting, what are they called? Powder melting powder blushes. There we go. Sorry guys, it's a Monday, I'm filming this. And it's in the color 04 Sumiro, okay? So we've got a nice Suqqu blush on, and I just want to show you in daylight what this looks like once it kind of has a second to like dry and set down and my skin has kind of calmed down from my workout and my shower. So yeah, I think that it looks very luminous. I'm right in front of the window right now. You can see right here, it does settle into my smile lines, but it's pretty easy to just kind of smooth out. And around my nose, it's looking a little weird, but guys, that's just I have like a breakout on my nose and no foundation is sticking to it right now. So I feel like it did a pretty good job there as best as it could. So yeah, I think it looks absolutely amazing upon first application. As you can see, it dries down a bit, it sets a bit. I'm wearing no setting powder whatsoever on my face. I just went in with the powder bronzer and the powder blush. So this is what it looks like. You know, could I powder around here? Like maybe, but not really. I don't really think that this requires a ton of powder unless you have an oily skin type. So this is what it looks like upon first application. I will check in with you guys in a couple of hours once this has been on my face for a little bit. So I'll see you then. Hey friends, it is now 1 o'clock. So I've been wearing this foundation for a couple of hours and I wanted to show you guys in daylight, what does this foundation look like? Okay, so let's zoom in here. I just want to show you, it still looks absolutely stunning on the majority of my face. You do see it settle like into the smile lines, okay? But it's pretty easy to just kind of like warm it up with your finger. It's looking maybe just the slightest bit dry right here and around my nose, and the weather is changing here, so my skin right there in this particular region hasn't been doing very well. I usually, with most foundations, I have to put concealer on my nose, but I didn't do that for the purposes of this review. So I just want to mention everywhere else, this really looks super beautiful. It doesn't look dry. It's really just like my nose, which is my problem area, where this isn't, it's like not sticking very well and it's getting just like a little bit cakey. But for the most part, everywhere else, I think that this looks fantastic. Again, been wearing this for a couple of hours. I'm just working from home. I'm gonna check in with you guys at the end of the workday to show you what it looks like while it's still light out, so stay tuned. I'm back. Okay guys, so it is 5 o'clock right now. I just wanna hop in, especially because the sun just came out. So I really wanna show you guys what this looks like in sunlight. Honestly, I haven't seen much of a difference from before. I think that, you know, I'll kind of show you here in the sun. I think that it just has this beautiful luminous effect. Even when I went into the bathroom just now, just to kind of like assess the situation, I thought that this looked beautiful. I still see just like a little bit of dryness around my nose, and honestly, it doesn't wear very well on my nose. It's like almost, it's kind of threatening to be dry right in my like typical areas, but it's not dry. Like it looks fine. I feel like it's really clinging to my face quite well. It's really just the nose area that is my problem area, where it's just looking a little bit dry. It's not a miracle worker, but then again, like I'm kind of breaking out right here, and that's why you see that redness. But I just want to show you right here what that looks like. You can see it's just like just a little bit dry, and it does go into my smile lines, but I don't see that it's going into any of like those lines right here. You see, it's not settling into those. So yeah, I thought this would be a really great time to give you guys an in-depth close-up. And quick reminder, I'm wearing no highlighter. Everything that I put on was matte, okay? I put on matte bronzer and matte blush because I didn't want to affect this analysis. So all of that luminosity is coming from the foundation. I don't have any other setting powders or anything like that. So that is where we are at. So yeah, I think it looks great. And now I'm going to go to the gym and run some errands, and then I'll be back with you guys at the very end of the night. So we'll see like, how does this do when we wear this like literally all day? I'll see you there. The day is done, or at least it is for my makeup. I'm gonna go take a shower soon, guys. It is 10 o'clock at night. I've been working on editing parts of this video, and I just wanna show you one last check-in so you can see what this foundation looks like by the end of the day. We've been wearing this for 14 hours about. So I feel like that's a good enough wear test. What do you guys think? And so I honestly, guys, I really don't see a huge change in this foundation since the past, basically like since the past 2 check-ins, right? Okay. I think that the finish still looks amazing. There's something really special about the finish of this foundation that just makes your skin look so airbrushed. You would have seen it in the last clip when I kind of like stepped into the sun. You do like, you really have to get really, really close to kind of see any imperfection with this foundation right now. It has obviously worn off my nose. I've said it a million times. I know it's still the same deal there. I have a little bit of fallout of my eyeshadow there. But in terms of this coverage right here on my cheeks, on my forehead, looks perfectly fine. I was wearing like a beanie hat down to here, and it still looks fine. It doesn't look like it really wore off much or at all. And if you get really, really close, I was kind of touching this earlier, but if you get really close, It's like, you can see a little bit of dryness like here and there, but you gotta get really close, okay? So I think that this was a really good wear test. Other times when I wore this, I noticed there was just like a little bit of dryness right here, kind of just depending on the day, depending on the weather. But I don't know, guys, like I've worn this on rainy days. I've worn this on like colder days, days where I'm like really out and about, like out with friends, weekends, work days, all that good stuff. And I feel like the wear is pretty consistent between this and then sometimes it being maybe like a little bit drier in my problem areas. So just wanted to show you that at the end of the night. I have just kind of like a ring light on a little bit, but I'll turn it down here so you can see it really doesn't change much. So just wanted to show you guys that. I also wanted to mention this because I realized I wasn't saying this in the other part of the video, but just to clarify, this product was not gifted to me by Suqqu. I don't have any affiliation with the team. They are not sponsoring this video or anything like that. They just did a free consultation with me, which you actually can do yourself as well. You can use the email that I'm providing in the description box down below. If you want to schedule a consultation with them to talk about any of their products, anything that's launching, you can do that with them. And it's really, really fun. It's really cool to learn about the products and hear about somebody who actually works from the brand, tell you about the products, how they can be used, and kind of what are the differences between each of the formulas. So I just wanted to mention that also. Let's get back to the video. All right, friends, I hope that that wear test was helpful for you guys. What I'm gonna do right now is just briefly compare this new liquid foundation from Suqqu against not only the cream foundation from Suqqu, but also a couple of other foundations that I'm sort of reminded of. And I really wanted to kind of experiment and figure out what is the difference between this and those foundations. So starting off with the comparison between the liquid foundation and the Suqqu cream foundation, I'm going to show you guys close-ups of these foundations on my hand, okay? The first thing that you will notice is that the shades are not the same, okay? I mentioned this in the beginning of the video. The liquid foundation, which is on the left, that is just a tad warmer. It's definitely a little bit warmer for me. It's kind of negligible once it goes on the face, but I do want to mention that, and I do think that these colors sort of stayed true even when they dried down. You'll also see just kind of like in the finish that the liquid foundation, it's just, well, it's more of like a liquidy texture, obviously, whereas the cream foundation, I like to describe this as more of like a pudding-like texture. It definitely feels like more of a moisturizer in a jar. It comes in a jar, so it totally makes sense. Now, what I did here is I then smoothed each of these out so you could really see what the finish looks like, okay, guys? And what you'll see here is that the liquid side, it definitely has more of a luminous finish. It looks airbrushed. Like it definitely has some sort of illuminating particles in it. And I think that must be that sort of like fluid pigment technology that they are talking about. It really just kind of creates this very interesting sheen over the skin. Whereas what you'll see from the cream foundation is that it really looks more just like a moisturizer. It looks like a really creamy, hydrating moisturizer on the skin. And I'll show you guys another clip here of what this looks like once they dry down so you guys can get more of an idea of the finish once these actually are set on the face. And I find the same thing to be true where the liquid foundation, it's definitely like more luminous. It's definitely more like set down, okay? This is supposed to really last all day. That is what they are claiming. It's really supposed to kind of cling to the face, whereas I feel like this cream foundation, it is more of kind of like that creamy, dewy vibe, and that's what you are seeing here. I know that the colors are not the same, but I'm talking more about like the finish and the dry down. So if you're deciding between these guys, I think you really need to ask yourself, like, what kind of finish do you want? If you have dry skin, I think you really should be going with the cream foundation. And if you want something that's just like a little bit more perfecting, a little bit more airbrushed, and maybe you want something a little bit more mattifying, that's when I think you need to go for this liquid foundation. Next up in our comparisons, we have the McGrath Foundation. This is one of my all-time favorite foundations, and I did kind of switch between each of these foundations when I was testing the Suqqu, just to kind of remind myself, like, what does this feel like on the skin? And man, I forget how good this McGrath Foundation is. So once again, I put this on the back of my hand, and then I waited a little bit for them both both to dry down. And here I am comparing the shade 110 in Suqqu, like I have this entire time, with the Pat McGrath shade Light 6. What you'll see is that the shades, they're very, very similar. So I thought that that was interesting. But with the Pat McGrath, what I'm seeing here is that the coverage is just a little bit lighter. I think that the formula in general is just like a slightly more lightweight. I also think that the Pat McGrath, it doesn't set down quite as much, but even though it doesn't set down as much, I do feel like the Pat McGrath just lasts a little bit longer on my face for whatever reason. I think it's just like a little bit less matte. It's just a little bit less drying. But what I like about each of these formulas is that they're both very radiant. They're both very radiant. And even though the formula is lightweight, you're still getting a good amount of buildable coverage. So yeah, when I first tried this Suqqu foundation, I instantly thought, wow, I wonder how this compares against the Pat McGrath. And that's, you know, I think that these are somewhat similar, but the Pat McGrath is definitely a little bit more lightweight. And at least on my dry skin, it's slightly more long wearing. Next up, we have the Lisa Eldridge Foundation. I was also reminded of this foundation. This came out within the past year. I know a lot of you guys like this foundation, but then it doesn't work for everybody. I love this foundation. So I'll show you guys a close-up of this. What you'll see here, I mean, right off the bat, the Lisa Eldridge Foundation is just not as runny as a formula. It's definitely more of like a cream. When you pump it out onto your hand, it kind of just deposits into a little, like, you know, like a little dollop instead of almost running down your hand. And I would say once these set down, the Suqqu, I think it's definitely more luminous. It's definitely more radiant. Whereas the Lisa Eldridge definitely has a little bit more of like a self-setting, very soft, very powdery finish. It's just like a little bit softer, but it's not as reflective. I feel like the Suqqu, it definitely sets down more. What I'm noticing here, what you're gonna see in all these comparisons, is that the Suqqu side, it definitely just has this almost airbrushed sheen to it, okay? That's what I'm definitely seeing from this foundation. Next up, we have the La Mer Soft Fluid Longwear Foundation with SPF 20, and I have the shade 120 Ivory. I definitely feel like this foundation from La Mer, it's a little bit more lightweight. It definitely has more of like a serum-y, skincare like kind of vibe. It's all around just a little bit lighter than the Suqqu for sure. I think what is really nice about both of these is that they both have a really nice luminosity. I don't think that the La Mer lasts as long on me, however. It's overall just a little bit lighter. It's just a little bit more skincare-y, but it is fairly hydrating and it's very luminous. So if you want something that's just like a little bit more mattifying and a little bit more setting, then I think the Suqqu liquid foundation is going to be good for you. All right, friends, I hope that all those details were helpful for you. Now it's time for my final thoughts. What do I think after testing this for 2 to 3 weeks of this new foundation from Suqqu? Okay, guys, so I think overall, I really like this foundation. I think that it looks absolutely stunning on the skin. It gives the most luminous effect. I think the biggest catch here is that it is very self-setting, okay? While it does create an absolutely gorgeous airbrush look, I think that on some people, especially like me with drier skin, it can be just a tad drying. If we look at the ingredients, we do see that alcohol is a little bit higher on the list. I think that's what is creating a lot of that like spreadability and the fact that it does kind of set very well because the pigments go on, they're sort of suspended in that liquid, and then you have the alcohol kind of evaporate and it just sets on your face. And I think for some people, that might be the ingredient that makes it just like a little bit drying. That being said, I still think this is a stunning formulation. I also see that there's hyaluronic acid in this, which for a lot of people, that can be very hydrating, but for people like me with dry skin, if I don't have a formulation that is occlusive enough to prevent that hyaluronic acid from sort of evaporating into the dry air, then it is going to create those sort of little dry patches that you may have seen in the wear test. I think that this foundation for me, it's going to be perfect in more of like the spring and the summer. Like once it gets a little bit more warmer and it gets a little bit more humid out, I think I'm going to be going for this because I think I'm going to need something that's just like a little bit more matte, a little bit more long wearing for when I'm outside in the sun. Maybe I'm sweating a little bit. Maybe I have to put a mask on. Maybe I'm traveling a little bit more. That's what I think this is going to be good for. If you ask me, okay, against the cream foundation, which of these should you go for? I think that overall, I still prefer the cream foundation. I think that the liquid is very good, but it's not going to be like holy grail for me, because for me, holy grail means that it works no matter what. Like, it doesn't matter where I am, it doesn't matter what season it is, doesn't matter the occasion. Like, that's going to be my bae, that's my holy grail, and that is this cream foundation. But I still like the liquid foundation. It's still a good foundation, okay guys? And it really does remind me of the Pat McGrath and also a little bit of the Lisa Eldridge as well, which are two of my favorite foundations in my collection. So I think if you're looking to spend some money on Suqqu and you're choosing between these, definitely, because they have like the same shade range and they're almost the same price, just ask yourself, do I want something that's more hydrating? Go with the cream foundation. Do I want something that's gonna make me look more airbrush, that's maybe a little bit more mattifying? You know, if you have sort of normal to oily skin, I think you're going to be fine with this. I've only seen like 1 or 2 reviews with this foundation so far, and I think a lot of people have just claimed that it's not super long wearing. I don't know, for me, it wears perfectly fine. I've done multiple wear tests on this in different types of days. I even went out on a run with this one time and I took a photo after the run. Granted, I didn't sweat that much because it wasn't hot outside, but I took like a little video and I posted it to my Instagram, and one of you guys were like, that's after the run? That's what your skin looks like? And I was like, I know, it's really good. Like, I think that this works fine. I think the biggest thing here is that sometimes it doesn't wear well because it gets dry. And that's the biggest thing, is like when it gets dry, you see it start to wear off. So once again, if you have dry skin, I think I would go for the cream foundation. I think the nice thing about this is though, is that when it does start to wear away, it doesn't look bad. It doesn't look awful, okay? Like when it does start to wear off, I feel like it wears off pretty seamlessly on my face. It's honestly, guys, just when my skin is a little bit on the dry side, depending on the weather, that this doesn't work for me. I've tried it so many times now. It's like sometimes it gets a little dry, but most of the time, it looks bomb. So those are my thoughts, guys, but I'm just one person, so please sound off in the comments down below and let me know if you tried this, because your opinion is worth just as much as mine. I'm really excited to hear if you guys are interested in this. I'm excited to hear if this review is helpful, and I really want to know how you guys are getting along with this, because I'm just one person and I'm really interested to hear, for those of you who have more of like normal skin, combo skin, oilier skin, how you like this new foundation from Suqqu. Thank you guys for sticking with me through this review. Once again, I'm going to be putting all of the details for this foundation down below in the description box, and also the contact information for the Suqqu team so that you guys can get in contact with them if you need any help picking your shades, choosing products. They are so lovely and so helpful. Thank you so much, Suqqu team, for having a consultation with me and teaching me all about this fantastic foundation. And if you guys are still watching, maybe it means that you like this video and you should consider subscribing to my channel. So please hit that subscribe button. I would love to have you as a part of my community. I upload content every single week. I will also include here my Instagram handle. If you guys don't follow me on Instagram and you have Instagram, you definitely should. That's how you guys can connect with me on the day-to-day. On my stories, I'm always telling you guys what I'm buying, all of the good sales. I let you know when products like this drop, especially things that are very limited edition. So if you guys want all of the hot new goss and all the releases and the sales, definitely follow me on Instagram. I hope that you guys are having a fantastic day, and I will see you in my next one. Goodbye.